bank guards drag black CEO until her FBI badge drops and stuns everyone. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. The marble floor gleamed like judgment. The kind that doesn't need words, just eyes. At 9:43 a.m., inside the vaulted lobby of Crestline National Bank, two guards pinned a black woman to the ground. Their uniforms creased, their tones rehearsed. "Ma'am, stop resisting," one barked, his knee pressing into her shoulder. The echo of his voice bounced off gold pillars and glass walls. Her name was Dr. Amara Lewis. But in that moment, no one cared. Not the guard gripping her wrist, not the manager standing by the reception desk, pretending this was procedure, and definitely not the half-dozen employees in gray suits holding up their phones to film. A man in a navy tie whispered, "Another fake badge, huh?" Someone laughed under their breath. Someone else whispered, "Why do they always make a scene?" Amara's voice didn't rise. It cracked the air like still lightning. "I said I have identification." The guard yanked harder. "We'll verify that downtown." Her blazer slipped, and the white of her blouse flashed against the cold floor. One pearl earring rolled away, stopped at the foot of a banker in loafers who didn't bend to pick it up. Through the blur of polished shoes and camera lenses, Amara saw her own reflection in the marble, distorted, trembling, and framed by the word security stamped across a man's sleeve. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Amara. "Check her bag," someone ordered. Documents, scattered federal seals, contract headers, encrypted case files, spilled across the lobby like glass shards. None of them looked, none of them read. They only saw skin tone, posture, defiance mistaken for threat. From behind the teller counter, whispers bloomed. "She forged those." Quote, "She's with that scam outfit. You can tell by her attitude." The camera phones tilted lower, capturing humiliation in high definition. And above it all, the branch manager, thin, balding, expressionless, folded his arms. "Ma'am, this area is for verified executives only. You've caused enough disruption." His voice dripped control, but underneath was fear, the kind that hides behind policy. Amara lifted her chin from the floor, eyes steady. "I came here to finalize a cybersecurity contract for your bank." Laughter rippled through the onlookers. "Sure you did," the guard said, tightening his grip. Then the sound that froze her metal against tile handcuffs. A few phones zoomed in. "Hungry," one woman whispered. "Don't post it yet. Wait till it gets dramatic." Amara's breath steadied. She had trained for chaos, for pressure, for truth. But not for this, the familiar echo of a room that decided she didn't belong before she spoke a word. Outside the wide glass doors, morning light poured in, indifferent. Inside, dignity hit the floor harder than any body. And somewhere deep under the noise, the story was already shifting, because justice, though silent for now, was watching through every lens. 30 minutes earlier, the same marble floor looked like serenity itself. The kind of morning that convinces people power and civility can coexist. Dr. Amara Lewis walked through the revolving doors alone. No entourage, no luxury bag, just a navy suit, a soft cream blouse, and a tablet pressed against her chest. Her heels didn't click, they whispered. Every step measured, intentional, the rhythm of someone who never rushes because she never needs to prove she belongs. The receptionist looked up, smiled half-heartedly. "Appointment?" "Yes," Amara said softly. "Crestline Partnership Review. Lewis Cyber Defense." The name didn't register. The woman typed, frowned, then gestured toward a waiting area filled with executives in suits worth more than some cars. Amara sat, straight-backed, calm. Her eyes swept across the lobby's security cameras above, mirrored elevators ahead, the subtle hum of money being counted somewhere behind the walls. She'd designed encryption systems to protect institutions like this. Ironically, They were now the ones that didn't know who protected them. Behind the desk, two managers whispered. "She doesn't look like someone from a federal partner," one said. "Maybe she's just here to drop off documents." Those tiny sentences, casual, harmless to them, built the scaffolding of what would soon collapse on camera. Amara checked her tablet. Her calendar glowed with precision. 10 a.m. Finalize merger protocols. 10:30. Security audit briefing. Her company had spent 3 years cleaning up the bank's data mess. After a ransomware leak, they still pretended never happened. Today was supposed to be ceremonial: sign the compliance report, shake hands, smile for PR. But the air shifted. The kind of shift that happens when someone decides you don't fit the picture they expected. From across the room, a security officer watched her too long. The receptionist kept glancing, whispering into a headset. Amara noticed. She always did. But she stayed still, eyes calm, breathing even. She'd learned that silence could be a blade sharper than outrage. Her father once told her, "Never let them mistake your peace for permission." She carried that line like armor. A young intern, Jamal, passed by with a cart of coffee cups. He recognized her instantly, the founder whose company built the FBI's cyber forensics backbone. His breath caught. He almost spoke, but the senior banker beside him said, "Keep moving." Quote. When her name finally appeared on the visitor screen, it was misspelled. Amara Luis, verification pending. She smiled faintly. Same mistake as always. A single letter off. A whole assumption implied. She approached the counter. "I believe there's a security pass under my company's name." The receptionist hesitated. Yes, but we'll need to see additional identification." Amara handed her ID, corporate credentials, and authorization letter. Still, the woman's smile thinned. "It'll just take a moment." Behind her, two guards began walking over. The clock struck 9:40, and the world began to tilt slowly, almost gracefully toward disaster. The shift started small, like static before a storm. A whisper between tellers. A glance from the security desk. The kind of unease that spreads before anyone names it out loud. The receptionist leaned toward her intercom, voice low. "Can someone verify this client's credentials? Says she's with a federal partner." Quote. Through the earpiece, a manager's tone came back sharp. "Run an extended check. We've had fraud attempts lately." The words fraud attempts hung in the air like smoke. Amara stood quietly, watching the reflection of every move in the glass doors ahead. The two guards approached gray uniforms, heavy belts, the weight of authority they'd learned to wear like armor. One of them, older, tall with a scar near his temple, spoke first. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to step aside." Quote. "Is there a problem?" Amara asked evenly. He looked at her ID again but didn't really read it. These look unofficial. Unofficial. That word again. The modern way to say you don't look the part. Her tablet chimed softly. A notification flashed. FBI compliance review. Crestline branch, 9:45. Confirmed. She tilted the screen toward them. "My meeting is scheduled in 5 minutes. You're delaying your own audit." The second guard laughed under his breath. "Nice try, ma'am. We've seen this scam before. Print a fake meeting. Dress sharp. Act confident." Behind them, a few customers turned to watch. The murmurs began. "She forged it. She's too calm, it's an act. She's recording us, I bet." In a corner, the branch manager, Mr. Dalton, adjusted his tie and approached like a man walking toward a stain on marble. "What's going on here?" The guard answered quickly, eager. "Possible impersonation, sir." Dalton's eyes slid over Amara from head to toe. Measured, dismissive. "Miss Lewis, is it? May I see your documents again?" He didn't wait for her reply. He snatched the folder from her hand and flipped it open, papers spilling onto the counter. The embossed headers gleamed under the light. Federal Bureau of Investigation, Confidential Compliance Division. Dalton frowned. "You expect me to believe this?" He tapped one page with a pen, like punctuating disbelief. "Do you know how many fake seals we've seen this year?" Amara met his stare, calm, controlled. "Do you know how many real ones you've ignored?" The line froze him for half a second, but ego is a stubborn thing. He recovered with a smirk. "We'll verify this upstairs. Until then, please remain where you are." He signaled the guards to escort her toward a side area. One of them reached for her briefcase. "Standard check," he said. When he pulled, the clasp popped open. Papers slid across the glossy floor. FBI contracts, data, encryption blueprints, client lists under security clearance. The lobby went still. A man near the elevators muttered, "This is serious." Another whispered, "She stole classified stuff." Jamal, the young intern, froze near the coffee cart again. He recognized the seals, the same ones from internal training materials. He leaned to his supervisor, voice shaking. "She's not faking. That's real federal documentation." His supervisor hissed, "Don't get involved." Quote. But Jamal's eyes stayed on the guards, their hands tightening around Amara's arm. Dalton crouched, picking up a sheet. "Encrypted routing codes? You're digging your hole deeper, Ms. Lewis." He straightened, smug. "Security, escort her to the holding area until verification clears." "Understood," the guard said, gripping her wrist. Amara's voice stayed low, but the air around her sharpened. "You're making a very expensive mistake." Dalton scoffed. "We'll take that risk." Quote. And as they turned her toward the lobby doors, the chatter swelled like static again, half curiosity, half hunger for spectacle. Phones lifted. Screens blinked. The calm before the collapse had officially ended. From the far corner of the marble lobby, the smallest voice in the room became the only one that mattered. "Wait." It came from Jamal, the intern no one had noticed all morning. 19, nervous, still carrying the faint scent of cafeteria coffee and first-week fear. He wasn't supposed to speak, but he'd seen something everyone else ignored. The guards froze mid-motion. One still held Amara's arm. The manager, Dalton, turned sharply. "Who said that?" Jamal swallowed hard. "Me, sir. Her company's real. Lewis Cyber Defense. They're on the federal contract list. I studied their encryption models for my orientation." Dalton's tone sliced like glass. "This isn't your concern, son. Go back to your desk." "But sir, now, come." Jamal's voice cracked but didn't fall. "She's not a scammer." The crowd murmured, uncertain now. Phones hovered lower, indecision replacing excitement. The older guard glanced at Dalton, unsure if he still wanted to continue. Amara turned her head slightly, her voice calm. "Let him speak." Dalton snorted. "You don't give orders here." "No," she said softly, "but truth does." For a moment, even the air conditioning seemed to pause. Jamal stepped closer, trembling but resolute. "Those documents, they're real. I saw those templates in the FBI security compliance files. My supervisor made me memorize them." Dalton's face reddened. "You're overstepping." Jamal looked around. "Then why are you afraid of checking?" A woman near the waiting area whispered, "He's right." The balance shifted, a subtle but irreversible tilt. Dalton straightened, trying to reassert control. "Security, remove this employee from the floor." "Sir." "He didn't. I said now." Quote. But the older guard hesitated. He was no longer sure who the threat was. Amara's eyes found Jamal's. A silent acknowledgement, the kind that said thank you without a word. Dalton marched to the reception desk, snatched the phone, and barked into it. "Corporate verification, level 3. I have an individual claiming federal affiliation. Possible forgery. Send compliance down immediately." Every syllable dripped with arrogance and panic. While he spoke, one of the customers, a middle-aged woman in a red blazer, pulled up her phone and searched Lewis Cyber Defense. Her eyes widened. She whispered to the man beside her, "She's telling the truth. She's on the federal contractor registry." He blinked it. "You serious?" "Look." She turned the screen toward him. He nodded slowly. "Then this is about to get bad." Dalton hung up and spun around. "Until I hear from headquarters, this woman doesn't move." Cole. The younger guard shifted, visibly uneasy. "Sir, what if?" "No, what ifs?" Amara's tone never broke. "You're about to regret making me the headline of your bias training manual." Dalton leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You think you can intimidate me with fancy words?" Her eyes met his steady, analytical. "No, just accountability." Behind them, Jamal's supervisor tugged at his sleeve. "Come on, you've done enough." But Jamal shook his head. Not nearly. Quote, he raised his phone, recording now not for virality, but for proof. This is wrong, he said clearly. She's being profiled. She showed ID, official documents, and you still. Dalton lunged forward, snatching at his phone. Delete that. Amara's voice cut through, calm as a verdict. Touch him, and you'll confirm every allegation you've tried to bury. The older guard froze. The crowd stared. Something unspoken spread the collective awareness that the line had been crossed. Dalton backed off, his confidence thinning like air at high altitude. Jamal pocketed his phone slowly. You can fire me if you want, but this will be everywhere by noon. No one spoke after that. The lobby, once humming with casual cruelty, now buzzed with discomfort, the kind that happens when truth walks in and doesn't need permission to stay. Amara straightened her jacket. Her calm returned like armor. You all wanted verification? She said quietly. You'll get it. Every last bit. Her gaze moved across the frozen faces, the guards, the bankers, the watchers. The real audit, she said, starts now. And for the first time that morning, no one dared to disagree. The sound came first, the metallic click of authority gone wrong. A guard reached out, rough and certain, his hand closing around Amara's arm. We said you're not authorized. Step outside. Her voice stayed level. You're escalating a situation that doesn't exist. He tugged harder. And you're resisting. The crowd gasped. The phones rose again, lenses tilting to capture her being pulled toward the marble steps that led to the exit. Jamal shouted, Stop, you can't do that. But his voice was lost under the noise of polished shoes, murmured excuses, and the soft chime of the bank's security doors locking behind her. Dalton barked an order. Remove her now before she causes a scene. But the scene had already begun. Amara stumbled slightly, her heel scraping against the slick floor. A paper slipped from her hand, a signed compliance memo, bearing the federal seal. It floated down, weightless, as if mocking the weight of everything happening above it. Her pulse stayed steady, but her mind wasn't here. It was 15 years back, in a small-town credit union in Georgia. She remembered her father, Leonard Lewis, standing in line wearing his Sunday suit, paycheck folded neatly in his hand. He smiled at the teller. She frowned at his skin. 2 guards arrived within minutes. They told him he was trying to cash a stolen check, his own salary from the factory he'd worked at for 20 years. Amara was 16. She watched from the corner, fists trembling, voice frozen. Now, in the echoing grandeur of Crestline Bank, history repeated itself, upgraded decor, same prejudice. The guard's grip tightened. You're coming with us. Quote. Dalton's voice floated over the chaos. Call the police. Already dialing, someone muttered. Amara turned her head slightly toward the guard. Her voice was almost gentle. When you grab someone in error, the law calls it assault. When you do it to a federal consultant, it's a career-ending mistake. He hesitated, hand still on her arm but weaker now. Lady, I'm just doing my job. No, she replied softly. You're doing his bias. Dalton stormed closer, eyes narrow, face red. Enough of the games. If you were legitimate, you'd have backup. You wouldn't be alone. She met his gaze. That's the difference between you and me, Mr. Dalton. You need people to believe you. I only need proof. The lobby fell into a hush so sharp it almost rang. Jamal edged closer, voice shaking but audible. Sir, this is going too far. Get back to work, Dalton snapped. But the room had shifted. The onlookers no longer looked entertained, they looked ashamed. Some lowered their phones. Others simply stared at the spilled documents, reading what they'd ignored minutes ago. The older guard's hand finally released her. He took a small step back, uncertain. She said she's with the feds, boss. Maybe we should. Dalton cut him off. She's bluffing. Nobody like that works for the Bureau. That word that dropped like a match into gasoline. Amara straightened her sleeve, the same one that now bore a faint crease from his grip, her pearl earring still missing, her calm perfectly intact. 15 years ago, she said quietly, my father was dragged out of a bank for the same reason, for looking out of place, in a place he helped build. No one spoke. Even Dalton blinked. She continued, voice steady, deliberate. I swore it would never happen again. I built systems to protect institutions from corruption. I never imagined I'd need to protect them from themselves. The security guard shifted uncomfortably. Ma'am, maybe we should clear this up. Dalton shouted over him. No, she's trespassing. Remove her. But his command came too late, because as he reached for her briefcase, a small, black leather wallet slipped from her inner pocket. It hit the marble with a sound that cut through every conversation. The flap opened on impact. Inside gleamed a gold badge engraved with the seal of the Federal Bureau of Investigation Cyber Division. The guard froze mid-step. Dalton stopped breathing. Someone near the back whispered, "Oh my God." Jamal's voice trembled. "I told you." For a long second, no one moved. Even the hum of the fluorescent lights seemed to fade. Amara slowly bent down, picked up the badge, and turned it toward the nearest security camera. Her tone, calm as always, carried farther than any shout could. "You wanted verification," she said. "There it is." Quote. And as her reflection stared back from the marble floor, badge in hand, dignity unbroken the air in Crestline National Bank turned heavy with realization. The breaking point had finally arrived. The badge shimmered under the bank's fluorescent light, a single reflection that rewrote the room. Every phone, every whisper, every doubt froze. The older guard's hand hung midair, fingers trembling above Amara's shoulder. His voice cracked. "Ma'am, is that—" "It's real," she said simply, standing upright. "Federal issue. Cyber Division Consultant, Washington Field Office." Dalton stepped back as if the gold crest itself could burn him. This must be a misunderstanding. Amara looked him dead in the eye. "You created the misunderstanding. I just illuminated it." The hum of the bank's lobby returned like an aftershock. Cameras refocused. The woman in the red blazer who'd Googled her name earlier whispered. She wasn't bluffing. A client near the teller's line exhaled audibly. "Oh damn, she's FBI." Jamal stood still, watching vindication unfold. He wanted to smile, but what filled the air wasn't victory. It was the uncomfortable weight of truth. Amara's tone didn't rise. It sharpened. "You grabbed a federal consultant during an ongoing compliance audit. You obstructed an active review. Every word, every touch, has been recorded by me." Dalton blinked. "By you?" She tapped her tablet screen. The camera indicator glowed red. "Federal procedure. Documentation required for internal integrity reports. Congratulations, Mr. Dalton. You're in the file." The color drained from his face. "Call the regional director." He barked toward the receptionist, desperate for control. "Tell them to verify." She stammered. "Sir, her name's on the internal compliance notice that went out this morning." "What?" "It says Dr. Amara Lewis, scheduled for field audit 9:45. Dalton's voice broke. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" Amara turned slightly, her eyes cold. "Because arrogance doesn't read memos." The younger guard dropped his hand from his holster. "Ma'am, I didn't know." Amara faced him, calm but cutting. "That's the problem. You didn't ask." Quote. She lifted her phone and spoke into it, crisp, composed. "Evans, initiate protocol review Crestline branch, Miami sector. Lock internal systems and pull compliance data." A calm female voice replied from the speaker. "Copy that, Dr. Lewis. Initiating. Network lockdown in progress." Dalton frowned. "What are you doing?" "Doing your job correctly," Amara replied. Within seconds, the lobby lights flickered. The digital displays at every teller station flashed ACC's restricted system lockdown. Customers gasped, phones buzzed. The red warning on the main screen pulsed like a heartbeat across the wall. What is this?" Dalton stammered. "Internal freeze," Amara said. "No withdrawals, no transactions, no data transfers until the Bureau reviews your staff conduct and access logs." Quote. She walked toward the front desk with the quiet control of someone who'd been underestimated for the last time. "You wanted to see credentials? You'll see the rest of them soon when federal compliance officers arrive." The older guard swallowed hard. "Are we under investigation?" "You are under evaluation," Amara said evenly. "The investigation is what comes next." Dalton turned to the frozen staff, trying to recover his tone. Everyone remained calm. This is a procedural error." Quote. Amara interrupted softly. "No, Mr. Dalton. This is a cultural one. A ripple ran through the room. The receptionist lowered her head. Jamal's supervisor quietly stepped back, shame flooding his face. Amara picked up the fallen documents, one by one, her movements deliberate. This morning, I came here to finalize your compliance certification. Now, I'll be writing your corrective action report. Dalton's voice faltered. You can't just come in here and... She cut him off. I didn't come in. I was invited. You just never looked close enough to remember who sent the invitation. Her phone buzzed again. Evans's voice returned. Dr. Lewis, all internal accounts frozen. Security logs downloaded. Federal liaison ETA 9 minutes. Thank you, Amara said, eyes never leaving Dalton. He stammered. I'll lose my position over this. She tilted her head. You didn't lose it. You surrendered it the moment you chose pride over policy. The guards exchanged glances, the same men who had dragged her minutes earlier, now standing at attention like defendants in uniform. Amara turned toward them, her words softer but heavier. You followed orders without question. That's how injustice survives politely, procedurally. The younger guard lowered his head. We're sorry, ma'am. Then learn from it, she said. Apologies don't rebuild integrity. Action does. Quote. The air had changed. Even the customers, once spectators, now stood still, witnesses to something they hadn't expected to see. Dignity reclaiming its ground in real time. Amara exhaled slowly, gathering her badge and documents. The storm she hadn't started was now entirely under her command. And for the first time that morning, the bank no longer looked like a place of wealth, it looked like a courtroom. No alarms, no shouting, just the kind of silence that comes right before truth detonates. Dr. Amara Lewis stood at the center of the lobby, one heel scuffed, her blouse slightly wrinkled, badge gleaming at her side. Around her, the hum of frozen systems whispered through the screens. Access denied, federal lockdown. The crowd had parted unconsciously, forming an invisible ring around her, half in awe, half in guilt. Dalton stood at the edge of that ring, his voice barely holding together. Dr. Lewis, surely there's been some misunderstanding. Amara met his eyes, calm, precise. The kind of calm that doesn't ask for justice, it enforces it. There was a misunderstanding, she said. You mistook prejudice for protocol. He flinched, as if the words had mass. The guard nearest to him looked down, adjusting his belt, with shaking hands. Amara continued, her voice low but surgical. You called security because a black woman in a tailored suit didn't look like a federal partner. You dragged her to the floor in front of your clients. You called the police. And all before reading the first line of her credentials. No one spoke. No one dared to. She turned to the room. Tell me, if I were anyone else, in a lighter skin, would we be here right now? A few customers lowered their eyes. One whispered, No, ma'am. Exactly, Amara said. This is what systemic bias looks like. Not words, not slurs, just quiet assumptions with loud consequences. Her phone buzzed. Evans's voice came through the speaker. Dr. Lewis, Bureau Compliance Team, is 5 minutes out. Local branch authority suspended. Thank you, Evans. Amara replied, eyes still on Dalton. He tried again, desperate. I didn't mean. She cut him cleanly. Intent doesn't erase impact. You humiliated a federal consultant during an active audit, and you did it with witnesses, cameras, and arrogance. Dalton's throat bobbed. You could destroy this branch. She tilted her head slightly. No, you already did. The line landed like a verdict. Jamal, still holding his phone, stepped forward, voice steady now. Everything's recorded, Dr. Lewis. From the moment they touched you. She nodded once. Keep it safe, Jamal. Truth has a way of disappearing when it embarrasses the wrong people. The woman in the red blazer spoke up softly. You were just doing your job. Amara turned toward her, gentler now. Yes, but dignity is the job. For all of us. Quote. The guard with the scar near his temple swallowed hard. We didn't know who you were. Amara faced him squarely. You shouldn't have to know someone's title to treat them with respect. For the first time, Dalton seemed smaller, his crisp suit now an ill-fitting costume. Dr. Lewis, please, if you'd just let us... No, she said, you've spoken enough. She lifted her tablet, tapping a few commands. The bank's large digital wall behind the counter flickered. The Crestline National logo faded into a live compliance alert stamped with the FBI crest. The words scrolled across in bold white. Federal Oversight Active Staff, under review. Gasps rippled through the lobby. Dalton stumbled backward. You can't broadcast this. I already did, Amara said. Transparency is the first step to accountability. Quote. Phones across the lobby buzzed employees, receiving automatic notifications of disciplinary review. The guards' ID badges blinked red, then black. Amara took one slow step forward. You wanted to see power? Here it is. Not in shouting, not in uniforms, in accountability. Dalton looked like he might faint. Please, my career. Amara's eyes softened for a heartbeat. Maybe now you'll understand what it feels like when someone decides your worth at a glance. Quote. The quiet that followed wasn't empty, it was full. Full of reckoning, of lessons carved in silence. Jamal broke it gently. Dr. Lewis, what happens now? She looked around the room, the crowd, the cameras, the shame, the truth. Now, we stop pretending bias is invisible. Her gaze shifted to the front doors, where the faint flash of red and blue lights reflected off the marble. The bureau had arrived. She slipped her badge back into her jacket pocket, squared her shoulders, and said, almost to herself, they wanted to know if I belonged here. Let's show them who really doesn't. And as she turned to greet the incoming federal agents, the lobby stood still, not because they feared her, but because they'd finally realized what real authority looked like. Not loud, not angry, just undeniable. The double doors swung open, and a flood of authority entered. 3 agents in dark suits, earpieces glinting, stepped through the lobby like a verdict in motion. No shouting, no drawn guns, just quiet precision, the kind that makes guilt louder than noise. Every employee froze. The guards who had once dragged Amara now stood ramrod straight, uniforms suddenly feeling heavier. Dalton, the branch manager, tried to pull his suit jacket together, but his hands trembled. The lead agent, a tall black woman with sharp eyes and a calm presence, approached Amara with a respectful nod. Dr. Lewis, we've confirmed your report. Compliance audit initiated. Amara returned the nod. Thank you, Agent Rhodes. I appreciate your speed. Dalton's voice cracked as he stepped forward. I didn't know who she was. This is all a misunderstanding. Rhodes turned to him, expression unreadable. You don't need to know who someone is to follow protocol, Mr. Dalton. You just need to follow the law. That single sentence cut deeper than any reprimand. Amara folded her arms, her voice cool and deliberate. This branch is suspended pending investigation. No data transfers, no client access. All personnel involved will surrender credentials immediately. The younger guard looked pale. Ma'am, does that include? Yes, Amara said. Everyone. Evans's voice came through the speaker on Amara's phone again. Lockdown confirmed. All user profiles deactivated. Disciplinary memos issued to corporate. The lights dimmed slightly as terminals across the bank powered down. The Crestline logo on the wall blinked off. What was once a symbol of wealth now looked like an empty screen reflecting guilt. Customers whispered in disbelief. One man muttered, "Never thought I'd see justice happen in real time." A woman near the counter whispered back, "This is history, quiet, but heavy." Dalton tried again, his tone breaking. "Dr. Lewis, please. I've worked here 20 years. I didn't mean." Amara faced him, her gaze level. "You meant every assumption you acted on. That's what bias is. It feels like certainty until the truth shows up." He swallowed hard, words dying on his tongue. Agent Rhodes stepped closer, her tone professional but edged. "Mr. Dalton, your behavior today qualifies as obstruction of a federal audit and potential harassment of a government consultant. You'll need to surrender your credentials." "Come." Dalton blinked rapidly. "You're firing me?" "No," Amara said softly. "You're firing yourself." She took a step back, letting the moment breathe the way justice always does before it lands. The guards unclipped their badges, hands trembling, placing them one by one on the marble counter. The metallic clinks echoed like confessions. The receptionist followed, whispering, "I'm sorry," as she set down her ID card. Amara nodded slightly. I don't need your apologies. I need your awareness. Quote. Rhodes gestured to her team. Agents, secure all digital evidence and collect statements. The agents fanned out quietly, efficient and expressionless, like surgeons cleaning up after an operation. Jamal stepped forward, still clutching his phone. Dr. Lewis, I have footage of everything start to finish. Amara gave him a small, approving smile. Keep it. You just documented a case study in modern discrimination. He exhaled, both proud and shaken. They were never going to listen to me. Quote. Now, she said gently, they'll have to. Dalton sat down heavily on one of the customer chairs, his authority collapsing into something smaller, something human. He murmured, almost to himself, I thought I was protecting the institution. Amara looked at him one last time. You were protecting a perception. That's what destroys institutions. Agent Rhodes turned to her. The Bureau will take it from here, Dr. Lewis. Would you like to add a statement to the official record? Amara paused, her eyes sweeping across the stunned room, the customers, the staff, the silent witnesses who had seen arrogance unravel into accountability. She spoke slowly, each word deliberate. This isn't about revenge. It's about standards. When power forgets its purpose, someone has to remind it. Rhodes nodded. Statement logged. Quote. Amara gathered her documents from the counter, slid her badge back into her jacket, and turned toward the doors. Her heels clicked softly across the marble, the same floor where she'd been thrown minutes earlier. No applause, no celebration, just quiet respect. The last thing she said before stepping into the daylight was almost a whisper, meant for the room and the world beyond it. Justice doesn't shout. It simply shows up. Aye. And then she was gone, leaving behind silence, suspended accounts, and a lobby full of people who would never again mistake calm for weakness. By the time the Bureau's vehicles pulled away from the curb, the morning sun had shifted warm light cutting through the glass facade of Crestline National Bank. Inside, the once bustling lobby stood still. Screens remained black. The silence felt sacred. Dr. Amara Lewis stood at the threshold, facing the people who just witnessed a reckoning. Her posture was calm, but the kind of calm that comes after a storm, not before it. She didn't need the badge in her hand anymore. Everyone in that building knew exactly who she was and who they had been in her presence. Before I leave, she said quietly, I want to make something clear. Every head turned. No one moved. Even the remaining customers, who moments earlier were ready to slip out unnoticed, stayed rooted in place. This morning wasn't about me, Amara continued. It was about what happens when power stops asking questions, when assumptions replace facts, when we let fear make our decisions for us. Her eyes swept across the staff, the receptionist who had smiled out of obligation, the guards who still looked pale, the manager who now sat slumped at his own front desk like a witness to his undoing. You didn't just profile a woman, she said softly. You profiled an entire possibility. You decided who I was before you even heard my voice. Dalton lifted his head, voice barely audible. We made a mistake. Amara met his gaze. No, you made a choice. And it's the same choice this country makes every day when it assumes what strength looks like. Her words weren't harsh, they were scalpel sharp, precise, the kind that cut away illusion. Behind her, Jamal stood near the revolving door, watching like someone witnessing history instead of just surviving it. She turned to him. You spoke up when it cost you something, she said. That's how change starts, not from titles, but from courage. He blinked, overwhelmed. Thank you, Mom. She nodded. Keep telling the truth, even when it's inconvenient. Amara turned back to the rest. What happened here today will be studied. It'll be discussed in training seminars and courtrooms. Some of you will say it was an overreaction. Others will say it was long overdue. Both will be right, because accountability always feels unfair to the comfortable. A few murmurs rippled through the crowd, guilt wearing different faces, fear, shame, relief. She continued, I built my company to protect systems from corruption. I just never imagined the corruption would be so human. It's not always about money. Sometimes it's just about ego. Her tone softened now. But ego can be educated. If you choose to learn, Crestline can rebuild. Not with PR statements, not with new slogans, through policy, through action, Through listening, she paused, letting her words settle like dust after a collapse. Then she said the line that would replay across every platform hours later. I didn't raise my voice. I raised the standard. A single clap broke the silence from one of the customers who'd filmed everything. Then another. Then a quiet, collective rhythm filled the lobby, not loud, not performative, just acknowledgement. Amara didn't smile. She simply inclined her head. Don't clap for me, she said. Clap for the world you still have time to fix. She turned toward the exit. Agent Rhodes stood near the door, waiting. Are you ready to file your report? The agent asked. It's already written, Amara replied. They just haven't read it yet. Outside, the city moved as if nothing had happened, cars passing, sunlight catching on glass towers. But inside, something irreversible had shifted. Dalton watched her go, voice cracking into the quiet. What happens to us now? Without turning, Amara answered, that depends on whether you rebuild this place or repeat it. Quote. And with that, she stepped out into the light. The camera phone slowly lowered. The applause faded. Only Jamal stayed by the door, staring at the reflection of her departing figure in the glass. He whispered the words she had said moments before, not for anyone else, but as a promise to himself. She didn't raise her voice. She raised the standard. And for once, everyone in the room understood what that truly meant.